Resurrection, the action or fact of raising from the dead. Restoration to life, rising from the dead or return from the dead. In 1881, James Jett, along with 3 of his brothers, established one of the most profitable distilleries in northern Kentucky. By the mid-1800s, the distillery had the capacity to produce about 30 barrels a day. By the early 1900s, the Jett Brothers mashing capacity had increased and the warehouse capacity expanded from 1,700 barrels to 5,000 barrels. Later, the warehouse capacity would be expanded to 18,000 barrels. Since 1920, the Jett Brothers Distilling Company of Carrollton, Kentucky has been dead. Prohibition took the life of this distillery, and the owner, James Jett, died in 1929, just 4 short years before its repeal, sealing the coffin for this once thriving distillery. Jett Brothers Distillery was long forgotten by the Kentucky history books until recently when Royce Neeley of Neeley Family Distillery performed a miracle of biblical proportions and brought the Jett Brothers back to life. Well, in spirit anyway. Royce has been working over the past few years to bring the Jett Brothers back, and in 2023 brought them back in the form of 7 straight Kentucky finished bourbon expressions. First up, coming in at 109.9 proof, is the Old Jett Brothers finished in a French oak cognac barrel. This bourbon began as a 5-year-old high rye bourbon distilled by Royce Neeley at Neeley Family Distillery. It was then finished for 7 months in a French oak cognac cask. Next, at 106.5 proof, we have the Old Jett Brothers finished in a new toasted French oak barrel. This bourbon began as a 5-year-old high rye bourbon distilled by Royce Neeley at Neeley Family Distillery. It was then finished for 14 months in new toasted French oak. The third brother, coming in at 112.15 proof, is the Old Jett Brothers finished in a Turkish apricot brandy barrel. This bourbon began as a 5-year-old wheated bourbon distilled by Royce Neeley at Neeley Family Distillery. It was then finished for 7 months in a Turkish apricot brandy barrel. This barrel won Best Finish and Best in Class at the Key West Whiskey Invitational with the ABV Network. Next, at 109.8, we have Old Jett Brothers, double finished in new charred French oak. This bourbon began as a 4-year-old high rye bourbon distilled by Royce Neeley at Neeley Family Distillery. It was then double barreled for 14 months in new charred French oak. The fifth brother, at 109.7 proof, was Old Jett Brothers finished in Portuguese Madeira wine cask. This bourbon began as a 5-year-old high rye bourbon distilled by Royce Neeley at Neeley Family Distillery, then finished for 7 months in a Portuguese Madeira wine cask. Next, we have at 109.1 proof, the Old Jett Brothers finished in a Barbados rum barrel. This bourbon began as a 5-year-old wheated bourbon distilled by Royce Neeley at Neeley Family Distillery, then finished for 9 months in a Barbados rum barrel. The last brother in this series is Old Jett Brothers finished in a French Chateau Real-Sec Sauterne barrel. Coming in at 114.4 proof, this bourbon began as a 4-year-old wheated bourbon distilled by Royce Neeley at Neeley Family Distillery. It was finished for 14 months in a French Chateau Real-Sec Sauterne barrel. This spirit won double gold at the San Francisco Spirits Festival this year. Come by Neeley Family Distillery and try any of these offerings and get your bottle today. Hurry before these brothers disappear again.